Welcome back to the Humble Throne, where leadership is redefined through quiet strength and deep presence. I'm Todd Rabatin, and today we're talking about something many leaders carry but rarely name. This is episode 2, Imposter Syndrome at the Top, owning your space without losing your humility. Have you ever walked into a room, sat at the head of the table, and thought, do I really belong here? If you have, you're not alone. And if you haven't, stick around because chances are someone you admire deeply has. What happens when the world believes in you, but you're not sure you do? Leadership isn't always about confidence, it's often about doubt, especially the quiet kind. The kind we hide behind polished resumes, brave voices, and beautifully crafted reels and posts on social media. So today's episode is for anyone who's ever sat at the top and whispered, am I really supposed to be here? First off, we have to realize imposter syndrome doesn't discriminate and isn't just for newcomers. It doesn't care about your resume, your accolades, your corner office, the size of your team, or how much money you bring into the company every year. It whispers in the quiet moments when no one else is around. It shows up in the spaces between confidence and doubt when we least expect it, and it often hits hardest after success, when the spotlight is brightest, the self questioning gets loudest. And here's the paradox: the higher you rise, the louder it can get. The more responsibility we carry, the less permission we feel to doubt ourselves. Why? Because visibility amplifies vulnerability, because being seen can feel like being exposed. And here's the truth: even humble leaders get haunted because they care, they reflect, they aren't driven by ego, but by impact. I once spoke with a CEO, someone I deeply respected, and they just led a major acquisition. They were praised publicly, celebrated privately, and yet over coffee they leaned in and said to me, sometimes I feel like I'm faking it. Like any minute, someone's going to figure it out and it's all going to collapse. And to be honest, that moment cracked something open for me because it reminded me that even the most capable leaders carry quiet questions in their mind. I remember several years ago, I felt something similar in my own career. We'd gone through an acquisition of our own, and let's just say it was a chaotic transition. On the outside, I was the optimist who was everyone's cheerleader and believed the beautiful picture that was being painted by the incoming senior executives. But internally, I was scared out of my mind what a potential restructuring would do to my job, the jobs of my team, and everyone else, or if we would even have jobs at all at the end of it. And as time progressed, we did get to a point where my position was essentially eliminated, but the local leadership, for whatever reason, still wanted to keep me on the team. And so they transitioned me into the safety and engineering department, something I knew very little about at first, and just said, be teachable and we'll figure it out. What resulted was them putting me in charge of two location wide projects in OSHA compliance and SOP system engineering, something I had honestly always dreamed of doing for the company and something I was studying in my bachelor's degree online at the time, but something that I also didn't have the qualifications in my mind to complete. My job was to come alongside every single position in every single department, learn what they do, document it all, and then craft reports for review, training, and company wide best practices rolled out to everybody. And the first time that I stepped foot in each department and started asking questions of the department heads that had been there for 40 plus years, I would feel out of place. Would they think that I was an executive spy sent in to learn what they do so that I could train the next person to take over their job or find some way to innovate their positions out of the company entirely? Would they give me accurate information or just watch me struggle to fill in the gaps? Would they even respect the fact that I was just as scared as they were about the current situation of the company? The same was true when I presented my first set of findings to the local executives. Would it be what they asked me for? Or was I way off? Would they like the format, or would I have to start completely from scratch all over again? Was I thorough enough, or did I oversimplify the task? They were taking a huge risk for me leading these projects. Was I really the right person for the job? Or should they just outsource the project entirely to save time and money? And all these questions, once I started working with each department and presenting the first findings, they started to disappear. But in the moment and at first, I felt like I was in a dream and a nightmare all at the same time. So, what gives? I had earned a seat at the table prior to this transition, but I still felt like I was at the bottom of the totem pole on several levels. And I know I'm not the only one who's ever felt this way with a promotion or a transition. And reality is, imposter syndrome isn't a reflection of ability, it's a symptom of ability. It's a symptom of awareness, of caring, of knowing just how big the job really is and who all would be affected by its results. But here's where humility becomes the antidote and not the enemy. Because while ego demands certainty, humility invites curiosity. The humble leader says, I'm still learning, I still wrestle, but I'm here to serve. And that's not weakness, it's power. Here are today's humble truths. Number one, self doubt is a sign of self awareness, not disqualification. It doesn't mean you're broken, it means you're human, but it also doesn't mean you need to stay there. Belonging doesn't require perfection, just presence. Imposter syndrome thrives in silence. Speak it, and it shrinks. And number three, the throne gets louder when you sit with grace, not guilt. You don't have to feel ready to be worthy. You just have to be willing. So take a few moments to let those settle in because they're not just affirmations, they're invitations. Self doubt is a sign of self awareness, not disqualification. Belonging doesn't require perfection, just presence. The throne gets louder when you sit with grace, not guilt. And then ask yourself these questions. Where in your leadership do you feel like an imposter? In other words, where are you questioning your belonging right now? Is it a new role, a creative project, a relationship where you feel out of place, a new responsibility in your family or community that feels way out above your pay grade? And more importantly, what would you shift if you named that thing, not as a failure, but as a doorway? Because you see, imposter syndrome feeds on secrecy. But when we speak it, when we say, I feel this too, we reclaim our power. So I want to offer you a reframe. What if imposter syndrome isn't a sign of inadequacy, but a signal of growth? Because here's the truth, you're not an imposter, you're a learner, you're a leader in motion. You care, and that's a good thing. Next week, we're looking in the mirror, literally, by taking an exploration into self awareness, identity, and the quiet courage to look inward while leading outward. But until then, remember, you belong, even when it feels shaky, even when it feels surreal. The throne may feel too big some days, but you're not sitting there by accident or alone. Thanks for sitting with me today on the humble throne.